So, if we're being honest, this series is extremely cursed.
He needs some milk.
But nonetheless, our main character's name is Yuji Itadori. Yuji Itadori is an extremely nice kid who genuinely just wants friends around him by the time he dies. And so in order to do that, he joins a club. The club he joins is this club where they go and look into cursed spirits, sort of like this ghost hunting club that messes with things they're not supposed to. So eventually one day after school, this leads them to look into this one cursed object that they so happen to find that's in their school, and this cursed object is a finger that just so happens to bring in other occult cursed spirits. But they don't know this though, because they're humans and they can't usually see cursed spirits because, you know, humans and cursed spirits are in the cursed world for them, so just keep that in mind. Our main character Yuji had planned up to meet with them after school in order to unwrap that cursed object that they found. But before he could meet up, he had to stop by the hospital and meet up with his grandfather, who was unfortunately sick and dying. But this is not a large harping point in the series, but just know that like right after this interaction, Yuji's grandpa unfortunately dies. So on Yuji's way of leaving the hospital, he meets up and passes a student named Fushiguro. And this student isn't just some regular high school student, he's a high school student that goes to Jujutsu Academy, school where they go and slay cursed spirits to stop them from destroying the world as we know it, using Jujutsu. But when he meets up with Fushiguro as he's passing him on his way to the school, Fushiguro is there to warn him that an extremely strong cursed object, the finger that the occult club had found, was extremely dangerous and it was attracting cursed spirits to the school. So before Yuji could get there, his friends are already probably getting ran through and eaten by those cursed spirits because they didn't know any better about what to do with that cursed object. So Yuji, like a shonen main character that he is, he busts into the window and decides to save his friends despite Fushiguro's warnings. They save the girl, and Yuji realizes the only way to stop the cursed spirit that none of them can fight right now is to eat the one finger that he was not supposed to. I don't know why he decides to eat it, but he eats it, even though he knows it could unfortunately kill him in the end. He eats it and he becomes his character known as Sukuna, who was the king of the curses. And Yuji becomes overpowered, so he bodies the curse that was attacking his friends and Fushiguro. Unfortunately, at the cost, Sukuna has taken over Yuji's body at the moment. Sukuna threatens to kill Fushiguro, but lucky Fushiguro's teacher was there, aka the GOAT, Gojo, and he decides to smack up Sukuna so easily because, as everybody knows in the series, Gojo is the strongest, and he runs through Sukuna / Yuji pretty easily. So after this, Gojo takes Yuji back to the Jujutsu Sorcerer School that Fushiguro is from, like I mentioned before. He tells Yuji that the finger that he ate is a part of this cursed spirit king known as Sukuna, who needs all 100 or just a whole bunch of fingers in order to become whole again, right? He's a spirit so strong that you can't really destroy him if he becomes fully whole, but in order to contain him from becoming whole, even if you eat the fingers, Yuji has to eat all of his fingers in order to contain the cursed spirit king. Yuji reluctantly agrees, knowing that despite at the end with him having to eat all of Sukuna's fingers, that they will have to execute him in order to destroy Sukuna for good, but he's doing it for the greater good. So this leaves Yuji to leave his old school and to join this Jujutsu Sorcerer School that Fushiguro and Gojo are from. Also, let me mention that Gojo is the teacher, obviously, because he is the strongest. So when they get to the school, Yuji's able to join. He gets some new drip because Yuji's able to prove that he's like freshly doing Jujutsu Sorcerer stuff for a good reason, so they allow him to join. And also he forms this 4-man cell team with Fushiguro and Gojo, who we met earlier, and Nobara, a new girl who joins the team because she was already scheduled to come to that school in the first place. But I'm gonna skip over her origin episode because he lacked time, and she's honestly a pretty cool character. Just imagine Yuji but in female form. So since they're a Jujutsu team, they have to go out on certain missions in order to take down lower grade cursed spirits, and sometimes they'll bring Gojo with them, sometimes they wouldn't. But this time they didn't bring Gojo with them because he was on a bigger and stronger mission, because he's the strongest and he can't afford to hang around and babysit his team the whole time. And on this mission, they unfortunately all got bodied because the cursed spirit that they thought they were going to vanquish, which was supposed to be a lower level, was actually way higher, and this leads to the whole team literally going through hell. At the end of this mission, it leads to Yuji sacrificing himself by letting Sukuna take over his body in order so he can destroy the cursed spirit, so Fushiguro and Nobara can escape. Fushiguro comes back and fights Sukuna. Sukuna decides to spare Fushiguro because he likes him a lot, but he unfortunately does decide to kill Yuji for a little bit. So this leads Fushiguro and Nobara to thinking that Yuji is dead and getting hella sad, and they also end up getting bullied by these students from other schools. Tell them they're not ready for this event known as the Goodwill event, which we will be covering in part 2, but they also get taken under the ring by some older classmen who agree to train Fushiguro and Nobara in order to get them ready for the Goodwill event that's coming up. But that's basically it for them. So while all of that is going on, right, Sukuna and Yuji made a deal within his body that allows Sukuna to basically come back whenever he wants to, as long as Yuji doesn't remember the terms of the deal, and they settled this by fighting inside of Yuji's body, which Sukuna unfortunately wins because Sukuna is way stronger than Yuji is at this moment. But just know, Yuji basically wakes up from death while like he's right there on the bed in front of Gojo, like the little hospital bed that they have you on when you die. Before this, Gojo was extremely pissed off because he realized that they sent his students in to fight that special grade cursed demon, knowing that it could possibly kill them because they just wanted to get rid of Yuji that bad, because as all higher ups in anime are, they are extremely corrupted and evil. But this is something that we don't harp on for right now, and we will return to talk about later. Also, Yuji is taken heavily under his wing by Gojo, agrees to train him to get him ready for the Goodwill event as long as nobody else knows that Yuji is alive for the time being. This applies to Fushiguro and Nobara not knowing too. But while Gojo is training Yuji, they have a run-in with this super special grade cursed spirit who's extremely strong. Gojo handles it no problem because, as I said again, he is the strongest. But it turns out this special grade cursed spirit, he lives through this interaction, and he's from this whole like group of other special grade cursed spirits who are centered around trying to take down Gojo and trying to take down the world in order to bring back Sukuna as we know it. But Gojo handles it, so they have to retreat and fight again for another day. So after this, a couple months later, Yuji and Gojo are still doing training, but Gojo has to go on a trip. So Gojo leaves Yuji with this dude known as Nanami, one of the coolest characters in this series, by the way. And Yuji and Nanami are currently investigating this whole bunch of like human transfigurations that's been going around that turns them into basically like cursed spirits slash monsters that disrupts their soul. Through a whole bunch of BS, they basically found out that like it's this guy named Mahito and this guy named Junpei that are basically committing all of these crimes, but they don't have complete evidence, so they just leave Yuji to look over Junpei as a sort of like special investigator sort of thing. But coincidentally, Junpei and Yuji end up being friends. Yuji is able to diagnose that Junpei basically has nothing to do with all these humans ending up messed up and ending up like transfigured, but they do find out that Mahito is responsible behind a lot of this. Mahito had found out that Junpei was getting bullied in the movie theater, so Mahito had taken Junpei under his arm, but they don't know this yet. So it's almost like this inverse of the Gojo and Yuji situation where they're good, but the Mahito and Junpei situation where they're doing bad. It just depends on how you look at it. But for right now, Junpei is a good kid until his mom gets killed. He goes full psycho and basically goes completely over to the dark side and is getting trained by Mahito in order to use his cursed energy. So to make a long story short, basically Yuji and Nanami find this out, so they decide to confront Junpei and Mahito. Yuji sees Junpei and tries to convince him this isn't the right path and like everything's gonna be okay. I know you miss your mom, I know you have no friends, I know you get bullied, but come over to Jujutsu Academy so we can all be homies and everything can be sunshine and rainbows. But unfortunately, right as Junpei is starting to turn over to a new leaf, Mahito pulls up behind him and, oh surprise, Mahito wasn't actually doing this in order to take on Junpei as a mentor. He was just using him as a sacrifice. So Mahito unfortunately kills Junpei by turning him into one of those configured, like weird transfigured like humans where you disrupt their soul. And Yuji is like sitting there begging for like Sukuna to like help him turn it back because he can't. Sukuna is just that strong. He's the king of cursed spirits. But instead we get one of the rawest moments in the series where Sukuna and Mahito both start laughing at Yuji just due to the pure hopelessness that is like in that current situation. So this leads to this sort of 1v1 between Mahito and Yuji, where Yuji's pissed off saying I'll kill you because you killed my homie. Him and like Mahito are going back and forth. It's a pretty back and forth battle for a little bit until Mahito decides to try and use domain expansion, basically trying to kill Yuji while Sukuna is still in there. Sukuna says no, and he basically forces Mahito to back off by scaring him because, you know, he's not gonna allow that to happen while he's in there. Nanami pulls up. Now him and Yuji are both jumping Mahito.
Fight back, nigga! Fight back, nigga! Fight back! Fight back!
Mahito unfortunately escapes. Yuji is pissed off and depressed because he couldn't save his friend Junpei, and he's unfortunately too injured in order to keep chasing after Mahito. So he unfortunately kind of just like falls out, and that is the end of Jujutsu Kaisen Part 1. Mahito is a thought, Gojo and Nanami are goats as teachers, and I'm a pizza. So until next time, please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this anime minutes. I will see you guys for Part 2 whenever like Part 2 of Season 1 of Jujutsu Kaisen gets finished. My name is Tine Pizza. Please watch my other videos, and I will see you pizza people on the other side of the slice. Peace.